Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'd like to call the the MPO, the Metro Planning for Transportation meeting to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Miller,
Here.
Commissioner Kemp,
Here.
Commissioner Hagan,
Here.
Commissioner Overman,
Here.
Commissioner Smith,
Here.
Mayor Lott, Councilman Maniscalco, Councilman Citro, Councilman Dingfelder,
Here.
Mayor Ross,
Here.
Gina Elvins, Adam Harden, Paul Anderson or Charles Klug, Joe Wagner,
Here.
Michael Marino,
Here. Here.
Steve Kona,
Okay, we have a quorum. Let's everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation, please. You should have a flag on your screen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our gracious and Heavenly Father, we're thankful that you allow us to come together today to make decisions to make this county a better place for everyone to live, work, and play. We ask that you regulate our minds and humble our hearts as we make these decisions. Father, we ask that you put a blessing on this country to bring us together, Father, to communicate and understand each other better than what we're doing right now. We must do this, Father, to bring this country some peace and harmony. We ask you to bring us together regardless of our color of our skin, our sexual orientation, our political orientation, whatever it may be, just bring us together to make this place a better place for all of us to live, work, and play. We ask you to put your loving arms around those that put their lives on the line for us each and every day, whether they be military, be police officers, firemen, nurses, doctors, whatever the case may be, Father. We ask you to put your loving arms around them, guide them, protect them, and comfort them. When our work is done here today, we ask you to take us back to our homes to find everything safe and sound. These are all blessings we ask in your righteous and holy name. Amen. You should have received the minutes from the July 28th, 2020 meeting. Is there any corrections or additions to the minutes? If not, might have a motion to approve the minutes.
Move approval.
Motion by Commissioner Overman, second by, who was that?
Commissioner Smith.
Commissioner Smith. Please call the roll.
Miller,
Yes.
Dingfelder,
Yes.
Klug,
Yes.
Hagan,
Yes.
Harden, Kemp,
Yes.
Lott, Maniscalco, Marino,
Yes.
Overman,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Wagner.
Yes.
Motion passes 10-0.
Thank you very much. Do we have anyone for public comment? Do you know of Ms. Beth, Ms. Alden?
Mr. Clarendon is monitoring that.
Do we have anyone for public
Good morning,
comment, sir?
Mr. Chairman. I don't see any.
Okay.
Good morning. I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, very good. We'll move on from public comment. We move into committee reports and advance comments. Mr. Roberts, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman, members of the MPO Board. I'm Bill Roberts. I chair your Citizens Advisory Committee. Our monthly report is in your packet, but I'll touch on a couple of highlights. First, you're going to be considering a resolution today that will be presented by a subcommittee chairman, Hoyt Prindle. That item will be taken up under action items. The Citizens Advisory Committee also reviewed the TIP amendments Those are on your agenda for consideration, and they have the recommendation of the Citizens Committee. Finally, we continue to have a robust discussion about the TAP and the various aspects of it, and we'll be continuing that discussion in our upcoming meetings. Now, that's a brief summary of our report. I'll be happy to take any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Are there any questions? Are there any questions, Mr. Roberts? Mr. Roberts, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. West.
Good morning.
Morning.
In addition to the CAC report, committees received updates on regional trail priorities, HART service changes for 2021, Clear Guide overview, performance evaluation of e-scooter sharing in the city of Tampa, the Healthy Buddy program administered through USF, and the TB Next quarterly update on Section 4 aesthetics and West Shore Safe Trip. The Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee received public comment from Mike Lamarco regarding crashes and bicyclist safety on Fletcher Avenue. Members expressed interest in future plans for Florida, Nebraska, and complaints on social media regarding the newly installed crosswalks placed 1 block away from the stoplights, and wanted to know if the crosswalk at Dakota will be removed. Mr. Benson informed the group currently there are no plans to remove the crosswalk. The Technical Advisory Committee approved and forwarded for approval the Transportation Improvement Program Roll Forward Amendments, which is an action item on your agenda. The Transportation Disadvantage Coordinating Board received an update from Sunshine Line and selected a member and alternate to represent the Hillsborough Transportation Disadvantage Coordinating Board at Tri-County meetings. Staff received emails from FDOT thanking Allison Ye for participating in the FHWA peer exchange on resilience, Aaron McCormick regarding community garden initiatives, Lena Young Green regarding Vision Zero and connecting the Green Artery to Sweetwater Farm in connection to the Upper Tampa Bay Trail. Joshua Butts requested a list of the multiple use trails in Hillsborough and the total miles of trails. Cornelius Constantino regarding T-BARTA Vision 2030 from the Florida Air and Surface Transportation Alliance. Mike Lamarca regarding state and county service requests. Renee Lindstrom thanked Roger Matthew for providing a map for affordable housing shapefiles. Mr. Gary Cloyd phoned in a comment in support of addressing the fundamentals of our transportation system, like reducing vulnerability to severe weather, as mentioned in the recent Times article. A letter was sent to the Deputy Audit Director for Intermodal of FDOT regarding best ways to document overhead costs. All emails received by staff were provided to board members in their entirety prior to the meeting. There were no voicemail messages or Facebook posts received. That concludes my report.
Okay, are there any questions, Ms. West? Any questions? Okay, Ms. West, thank you very much.
Thank
Move
you.
on to action items, committee appointments. Ms. Wilkin,
I
She here?
believe Rick Clareton is presenting those.
okay, Mr. Clarendon, committee
Yes.
appointments.
Good morning again, Mr. Chairman. We have 2 committee nominees, Letitia Walker, nominated by the City of Temple Terrace for the Citizens Advisory Committee, and Matthew Pleasant as an alternate to the Technical Advisory Committee, nominated by the School District Growth Management and Planning Department.
Okay, is there a motion to accept the appointments?
I move to accept both appointments.
Motion by
Dingfelder.
Mayor Ross, is there a second?
Dingfelder, second.
Councilman Dingfelder seconds the motion. Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Miller,
Yes.
Klug,
Yes.
Dingfelder,
Yes.
Hagan,
Yes.
Hardin,
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
Evans, Yes. Marino,
Yes.
Overman,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Wagner. Motion passes 11-0.
Thank you. We move on to a resolution on racial discrimination. Hoyt Prindle.
Good morning, members of the MPO board. My name is Hoyt Prindle, subcommittee chairman of the resolution, or excuse me, subcommittee chairman for the Committee on Racial Discrimination. I'd like to thank Chairman Roberts for giving me the opportunity to present this resolution today. Essentially, as I'm sure you all know, given the events regarding the Black Lives Matter movement and other things within our country in the last couple months, I took it upon myself to present the original resolution to our MPO board, and Chairman Roberts appointed a subcommittee which specifically hashed out the language of this resolution, and then we voted on it as a full committee. So I will briefly go ahead and read the resolution, which is in your agenda packet, and it says, whereas the purpose of the Citizens Advisory Committee to the Metropolitan Planning Organization is to ensure that all voices in the community are represented during transportation planning decisions, and whereas the extreme acts of racist violence and excessive force that led to the deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and far too many other African Americans must be a call to action to all bodies of government that systemic changes are needed. And whereas throughout the course of history, racial discrimination has been evident in transportation planning is one of those systems that must change. Governing bodies that plan transportation must recognize how the system has created and perpetuated racial inequities, whether it be requiring African Americans to sit in the back of the bus, purposefully using freeways as a neighborhood clearing tool to bulldoze, divide, and box in African American communities, or refusing to have transit come into certain parts of the city for fear that it would allow African Americans and other minorities to easily reach those communities. Our country has time and again used transportation as a tool of freedom for some, but destruction for others. And whereas locally, neighborhood clearing was manifest in the construction of I-275 and I-4, which were used to divide African American communities and eliminate the Central Avenue Business District. And whereas on August 12, 2020, the CAC voted unanimously to recommend this resolution to the MPO. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Hillsborough Metropolitan Planning Organization that we stand with those who peacefully protest for racial justice and support ending racial discrimination in transportation planning, which includes ensuring more robust access to all modes of transportation with a more intentional focus on the needs of African American and other historically disenfranchised communities in Hillsborough County. Staff is directed to develop action items in support of this resolution. I'd like to give special thanks as well to Rich Clarendon and Beth, who helped get this in a form that was ready for the committee. But I would encourage the full MPO board to adopt this resolution. As you know, the CAC is a rather diverse group of individuals across the political spectrum, from very, very liberal to very conservative and everywhere in between. And this resolution, after it went through the subcommittee and had the input of several individuals, passed the CAC unanimously. So I think that does much to show that this was not something that was drafted in haste. It was taken over a few-month process and has wide bipartisan support across the subcommittee of the CAC. So with that, I thank you for allowing me to come and present the resolution today, and I would go ahead and yield the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I'm going to pass the gavel to the Vice Chair, Commissioner Kemp, and move that we adopt the resolution.
Second, Commissioner Smith.
We have a resolution, a motion by Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner Smith. Do we have discussion? Hearing, yes?
This is Mayor Ross. I'm going to vote in favor of this because I truly support the intent and the overall purpose of it. However, I do want to go on record to say I have a little heartburn with some of it, and that is that in one of the whereases, we've already made the decision on many cases that are all still under investigation, and the results of these investigations are not in yet. And so I have a little heartburn with looking at a video clip of something, and then that's the trial. And so everybody makes up their mind. I mean, we wouldn't be accepting of that for any other criminal case or civil case. We would wait until a thorough investigation were concluded, and then we would have a fair and impartial trial. And that's not occurred. And I wish that we had left that whereas out, because I feel like we're really, I mean, we all saw the video of George Floyd, and I don't know a single person in the country that supports what we saw in that video. But in these other cases, we don't have all the facts yet. And we're rushing out here to condemn the police actions when we don't really have all the facts. And the facts may, in fact, turn out to show that the police were wrong. And if they do, they do. But I think I wish we had left that out, because I think we're kind of slapping our law enforcement partners in the face a little bit by judging them without having all the facts. So I'll vote in favor of this with a little hesitation, but I support the overall intent of it. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. But I do think that people today are rushing to conclusions as soon as they see a 10-second video clip without waiting for all the investigation. So anyway, I just wanted those objections noted. Thank you.
Madam Vice
Okay.
Chair,
Thank you.
Vice Chair?
Yes.
This is Commissioner Miller.
Yes,
have the
Commissioner
floor.
Miller. Yes, you're
Mayor
recognized.
Ross, I'm not really gonna debate on what you just said. I understand what you're saying, your feelings. But that whereas clause does not do anything to talk about condemning the police departments or any law enforcement whatsoever. It says extreme acts of violence, and I think that's what you're talking about, an excessive force that led to the deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and far too many other African Americans must be called to action to all bodies of government, and systematic changes are needed. Nowhere in there it talks about police departments, law enforcement, sheriff's department, highway patrol, Texas Mounted Police, anything like that. I understand your point to a certain extent, but this is not condemning the police. This is talking about systemic racism in this country. It hasn't even talked about the gentleman that was shot in the back 7 times. That could be added, but it wasn't added. I think this was done before that time. We have got to come together in this community. We got to come together in this state. We got to come together in this country and talk about the systemic racism that's been going on for 200 some odd years. And if you look at the peaceful demonstrations that was done when I was growing up, and the peaceful demonstrations you see now, they're a lot different. A lot different. You have all races, all creeds, all colors, all national origins, all sexes, whatever, peacefully protesting day somewhat until it gets out of hand. And I pray that those particular demonstrations come back to peaceful demonstrations and we're able to sit down at the table and try to work things out. But I don't think anywhere in this resolution was it downing our police officer. Understand, I got a son that's a police officer. And I know it's difficult on him. A black police officer, it's got to be difficult on him. And I talked to him about it. But this is not condemning it at all. This is only talking about systemic racism and what we're trying to do in this county, the state, this country. That's all it is.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller. Commissioner Smith, you're recognized.
Thank you. I want to thank the Citizen Advisory Committee for bringing this forward, for working for 2 months on it. I know that it's true what Mr. Prindle said about the diversity of that group. I also know the commitment of that group, and they have my full admiration for the work that they do and the things that they bring us. We are very fortunate to have such an engaged, informed Citizen Advisory Committee who takes their homework seriously of advising this group, and I very much appreciate that. I appreciate the remarks of Commissioner Miller from his perspective, representing the minorities and also representing his son, a member of the law enforcement, so that we're clear on that point, that Mayor Ross made. So we're very clear moving forward on this, but we have our own citizens demonstrating in the streets by the thousands for months, calling for action, and we need to be taking this kind of action, step by step, measured action to root out systemic institutional racism wherever we can in our community, and our transportation infrastructure and planning is a very important place to be taking that action. So I appreciate this step and Commissioner Miller for making the motion. And I'm really enthusiastic about supporting it so we can make some progress and be proactive in our community before we need to, as much as we can moving forward in the future. Thank you.
Is there anyone else I don't have, I can't see if you raise your hand. So,
Madam Chairman Dingfelder.
yes, Councilman Dingfelder, you're recognized.
Thank you, Ms. Kemp. Mayor Ross, Commissioner Miller, Commissioner Smith all spoke very eloquently on this important issue. In the city of Tampa, we're obviously deep into addressing some of these issues. We've been the center of most of these protests, and folks have come down to City Hall in the droves to talk to us about these important matters. One of the things I wanted to mention, oh, and by the way, Mayor Ross, we do respect the work that Tampa Police Department does day in and day out, one of the toughest jobs in our community. I think we're very fortunate to have a good police department and a good sheriff's office, et cetera. And we've been fortunate as a community not to have these horrible issues in the forefront like some other communities. But that doesn't mean that we can't do better. And we're in the process with our mayor of reviewing our use of force policies, as well as many other policies that impact the community, and also modifying our community review board, our citizens review board, which is an important group in these matters. But in regard to the MPO, I just wanted to point out, we don't control any police departments or anything like that. We do transportation planning, and obviously transportation planning can have impacts on neighborhoods, and we need to be very cautious and vigilant that those impacts are not discriminatory. And that's where I believe that large whereas clause goes into in the middle of this resolution. But the other thing I want to make sure that we do is that we do a really, really good job with our contractors on making sure that we include minority vendors. And Ms. Alden and I discussed this a month or two ago, but I think we can do better. I know that we're signing contracts with about 4 or 5 vendors during this meeting, and I just want to make sure that over the next year we impress upon those vendors the importance not only of hiring with diversity in mind, but also subcontracting with diversity in mind, and that we can quantify that as well. So even though we might not have a big part on these issues as an MPO board, Ms. Alden, I think that that's an important place where we can make a difference and encourage minority engineers, minority consultants, and help them get a step up the ladder. So thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Is there anyone else with comments to be made? Seeing none, I'll just say I'm very grateful to the CAC for bringing this forward. It was wonderful, I think, resolution to bring forward to the attention of the board, and I'm sure that it required a lot of work and attention. Like Commissioner Smith, I have to say that I didn't need another meeting, but I sat in on a CAC MPO meeting. I think they actually permitted me to speak, but I sat for the meeting, and I was the quality and level of work and discussion and discovery and digging deep in was just amazing. We have an amazing Citizens Advisory Board to our MPO, and thank you all for your service and for bringing this forward. The remarks have all been incredibly appreciated and well taken. I think, honestly, I think that whereas extreme acts of racist violence, unfortunately, if we were to name names, would be far longer, I'm sure, for the for the brevity of this, that it was made shorter. But I think that it is an important paragraph. The one that throughout the course of history, racial discrimination has been evident in transportation planning. In one of those systems must change. We must recognize how the system has created and perpetrated racial inequities. And I'll tell you, I started doing more reading about this, and I was, and more of the information has come out recently, and I was stunned to find that I know our interstate system happened to go through poor communities. The heart and soul of our Black community was Central Avenue. The heart and soul of our Latin community, which, or as we say here, which separated Ybor and West Tampa. But it wasn't just by mistake or because it was the cheapest property available. Actually, the National Highway Administration had a policy of targeting and destroying those neighborhoods. And think about the generational wealth that was lost there. And then people couldn't get mortgages to move to the suburbs because of, discrimination that was in the documents, not allowing for Blacks and Hispanics to get mortgages. I mean, we have had, this has been so true in our transportation system. And I tell you, I'm extraordinarily concerned about the kinds of steps that have been going forward with plans like the regional parking garage plan, as I call it, because that's what it is, and the manifest inequities of that plan in terms of not serving these communities that were in such need of transit and still have nowhere near what we should be providing. So I think this is well taken. I hope it infuses every single part of what we do, including our road building, including our transit, including our procurement and hiring and community involvement. So thank you so much for bringing this forward. I hope it becomes part of the real a driving force within the work of the Metropolitan Planning Organization, the MPO, because certainly it has been a place where much discrimination, I feel, has taken place for decades and generations, and it's time for a reckoning, and I think a time for us to change that moving forward. So thank you very much for this. I don't know if there's any more comments to be made. Seeing none, I don't think we will move forward. We have a motion by Commissioner Miller and we have a second by Commissioner Smith. Please take the roll call.
Miller,
Yes.
Klug,
Yes.
Dingfelder,
Yes.
Hagan,
Yes.
Arden,
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Marino,
Yes.
Overman,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Wagner.
Yes.
Motion passes 13-0.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Transportation Improvement Program Roll Forward Amendment.
Hello, good morning. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. Today I'm going to be presenting the annual roll forward amendment for the Transportation Improvement Program, which was just approved. It's for the FY 2021 through 24-25. Next slide, please. Just wanted to give you all a quick update about what is the Transportation Improvement Program. The TIP is our list of regionally significant transportation projects for the state and the local governments. What the TIP does is it identifies, prioritizes, and allocates anticipated local, state, and federal funding for all the transportation projects for the next 5 years. We received the TIP from FDOT in April, and it's adopted by the board in June, and it's effective of October 1 for the following fiscal year. Next slide, please. This is what roll forward amendment is. So sometimes we receive projects which are programmed but not allocated in the previous fiscal year, and those projects are automatically rolled into the next fiscal year of the FDOT work program. So the roll forward amendment is a process by which budget for the unopened and uncommitted project phases are requested to be moved forward to the next fiscal year. By doing so, this reconciles the differences between the adopted TIP and the FDOT's work program. And it ensures that the first year of the TIP adopted by the board matches the first year of the work program. So that's what it does. Next slide, please. This is just to give you a quick update, and it's a summary. The details are in your project packet as well. This is just to give you a summary of what the roll forward amendment is for this year. Staff received 14 projects from FDOT, and you can see by the FPN numbers and the amendment numbers that these are the projects we received. Some of them are newly added projects, but they were programmed in the previous year, so they are not new projects. And if you can see here on the table, on the column towards your right, the amendment cost change column shows what amount has been added from the time it was adopted, which is a dark blue column. Can we go to the next slide? Yes, this is the continuation of the 14 projects. And if you can see where it says NA, those are newly added projects which were added after the TIP was adopted in June. Next slide, please. This is just a comparative report sample to give you an idea of how this looks like. If you can see to the top half of the page, this is what it shows as the adopted and how it was previously in June. The bottom half shows where the status says amended is the other projects which have been amended. They have an amendment number, and the row in green shows that this is the ACSU funds for this particular project, which is the US 41 project, Vision Zero project. You can see that funds for 500,000 have been added to 2021. So that increased the amount from 1 million to 1.5 million. Next slide, please. With this, I request that if you can approve this TIP roll forward amendment, that's my request. Thank you.
Okay, so any discussion on the amendment?
Mr. Chairman, Dingfelder question.
Okay, Councilman Dingfelder, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I was looking through this, I saw the one of the items, and ma'am, if you could roll back, Ms. Ramon, if you could roll back a slide or two where it had the list, the full list of the items. Okay, there we go. One of them was, I guess it's the next page up, Sulphur Springs K through 8, various locations, safe routes to school.
Yes.
As we all know, Sulphur Springs has many problems. Mr. Sharp has been deeply involved in helping that area, as have other folks. Ms. Kemp, I know, is very familiar with it. But Sulphur Springs has lots of problems. There's children in there that do walk to school. There's hardly any sidewalks at all. About a year ago, I got a tour from the Stepping Stones art group on the river there, and the young lady who runs that art center and works with children drove me through the neighborhood to show me how horrific the lack of sidewalks are, but to get to their elementary school. And anyway, I'm glad to see this item is on there, but what concerned me was it didn't look like it was really funded until 2023. Is that correct, Ms. Ramon?
I will just pull it up in a minute, the details.
That's what I saw on one of the
Yes.
breakout sheets.
Yes, so what this project actually amended was that it moved the funds to the first year. It was supposed to be funded for in the previous step for the first year, but then it got moved out. So if you can see here, the amount hasn't changed because the amendment cost change says 0. But at the same time, what this did was it moved funds around so that the first year, which is 2021, has been allocated some amount. So I believe they are slated for the first year, but I do not know the details of what is in the plan of the project.
Okay, Ms. Alden, maybe you can fill me in a little bit more. And I just wanted to catch it now. Is this funded in the first year, or it looked like it wasn't? It looked like the funding was moved out to 2023 instead of 2021. And if that's the case, I'd rather see that money pushed earlier if possible.
Sir,
we can't afford to risk the lives of those children.
Sir, I don't know. Did you see this project in the previous tip, and is that what you were trying to bring it up? Because this roll forward amendment we just received from FDOT last month, so that is why I was thinking that the funds have been moved from 2023 to there is actually SR2T funds which have been moved to the first year. So there is some project phasing in the first year, but I can send you this details if you want, but I will let Beth talk if she has any further details about that.
Well, I guess if you're telling me that it's been moved to the first year, I'm glad to see it. But my other comment is we build a lot of sidewalks in the city, and $100,000 doesn't go very far. And then it looks like I don't know if there's much money in subsequent years. So can anybody help me on that one?
Ms. Alden, you recognize.
Thank you, sir. And I don't want anybody to get the impression that this is the only funding available for sidewalks. And Councilman Dingfelder is exactly right that the city also funds a lot of sidewalk improvements. So what you're looking at here is changes in federal grant funding. So because of the real need in the Sulphur Springs area, this particular area got a special grant. The only reason why we would be shifting it from one year to the next is because the implementing agency that's actually going to build the sidewalk probably just didn't get the paperwork pushed through quite in time. So we're just shifting it from one fiscal year.
So when you say the implementing agency, I would assume that's the city of Tampa?
I think that's the city in this case. I don't have it in front of me. Vishaka, do you see it? Is that a city of Tampa grant?
The grant which was moved around was the city FDOT's PE place, but there are two different sources. One is the city of Tampa and one is FDOT. So it's part by two agencies. But the phase is different where they are allocating the money. I have the details in front of me.
All right, so just for one final clarification, Mr. Chairman. So are we confident that this 104 from the federal government is now moved up earlier into 2021 instead of 2023?
So that's, like I said before, earlier in the tip when it was approved, it was funded for a previous year, but since that project did not happen, that has been moved, advanced to the first year, which will now be effective 2021. So it was supposed to be for like a previous year, which was 2020, and from 2020 it has been moved to 2021. There is still, the construction is still slated for only 2023.
All right,
this amount which was moved, so if you see the $104,000 out of that, majority is for construction. A little bit of 1% of that amount is for the PE. So that is the amount which has been advanced. The construction still stays as of 2023. Of course, I don't know if there's any further update which City of Tampa or FDOT can provide. If you want those details, I can try to get it for you.
Okay, I'll lean on the city to get that done faster, and we'll get back with you. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, is there any other discussion on the, pardon
Mr.
me?
Chairman.
Commissioner Smith, you recognize.
Yeah, just a quick clarification. Ms. Alden, we talked about a typo on the next page of this list with the Coast Greenway. It's the last item is Coast County Greenway, and it should be the South Coast Greenway. There is a Cross County Greenway as well. So I think it's important to make sure that the name of this project is accurately presented. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. I will note that.
Okay, any other discussion on the amendment? Have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Kemp. Is there a second by sound like Councilman Dingfelder? Was that you?
Charles
Yes,
Klug.
Okay, Mr. Klug. Seeing no further discussion, please call the roll.
Miller,
Yes.
Klug,
Yes.
Dingfelder,
Yes.
Hagan,
Yes.
Hardin,
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Marino,
Yes.
Overman,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Wagner.
Yes.
13-0, motion passes.
Thank you. General
Thank you,
Planning
Commissioners.
Thank you. General Planning Consultant Contracts.
Good morning, Megan Baturney, MPO staff. So as of last month, we brought forth 5 of our GPCs forward for approval. Next slide, please. And so these were our 9 finalists. And so we negotiated contracts with 5 of them. Next slide, please. And so this time we are bringing back the remaining 4 that we were able to come to terms with. That would be AECom, Cambridge Systematics, Tyndale Oliver, and Tool. Next slide. And so again, as we had talked about before, the contract scope follows the MPO work program. The consultant task to be negotiated by the work order. And they each come with their own scope and products, and the lump sum fees negotiated by task are based on estimated hours and expenses and are a maximum of $300K per task. Next slide. So we again worked with the remaining 4 to come to a negotiated labor rate, which you did find in the backup. And so we used the data from the FDOT District 7 as our benchmarking, and we asked the consultants to strive to hit that upper range of the 75th percentile. When they were not able to do so, we asked that they provide justifications such as resumes, specialties, or any reasons why we should consider them. And so we do have that on file. Also, you'll see the multipliers. We also negotiated if there were any differences or an overhead, the operating margins, etc. And we also looked at the overhead in terms of they were audited and accepted by the FDOT as well. Next slide. Again, the contract is 2 base years, and then they have the optional for every year out. That brings us to that 5 years of why we do it every 5 years. The max fee per consultant has to be under $2 million over the life of the contract, and the total amount available is $600K to $900K per year. Next slide, please. So we are asking that you approve the general planning consultant contracts with the 4 following firms: AECom, Cambridge, Tyndale, Oliver, and Tool Design Group. And in there, you'll also see their subs as well. Does anybody have any questions that I could answer?
Are there any questions?
I had a question for
the
attorney.
Sorry, who has a question?
Dingfelder.
Councilman Dingfelder, you recognize.
Thank you. Ms. Smith, I don't know if I interrupted you or not.
No.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Ms. Attorney, again, going back to the minority vendor issue, is it safe to assume that none of these 4 companies are WIMBY, women or minority vendors?
That is correct. None of our primes are designated DBEs. However, we do have 9 total DBEs. They are in the sub-consultant role.
Okay. I know in the city county, and I suspect Hillsborough County as well, on occasion we identify some contracts as sheltered contracts. Are you familiar with that? The use of that? Well, I don't know exactly how it works, but our EBO folks can explain it to you. But perhaps I'm okay with this year, but perhaps next year we can identify a way to shelter at least one of these positions, that would either encourage or demand that it be a women or minority vendor. It seems like, year in and year out, I'm sure that these 4 vendors or whoever is selected are fine, but they're not WIMBY vendors. So it just seems like by the time it gets down, we start with $600,000 or $900,000. By the time it gets down to subcontract, it's probably a very small dollar amount. So if we can look into that for next year, that would be great.
So any other discussion?
And for the record, I'm seeing Ms. Matorney and Ms. Alden nod their heads, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Commissioner Smith, you recognize.
Thank you. Would you go to the 3rd slide, please, of the list of applicants and the ones that were chosen? There, that one. Just off the top of your head, do you know why Fair and Peers didn't make the cut?
Oh, so in July, these are the 9 finalists. So we have contracts with all of these. Last month, we brought forward for your approval Atkins, Fair and Peers, HDR, Kittleson, and BHB. So they are all set, and we have their contracts ready to go. And so it's just this month we're bringing forward the remainder of the highlighted ones.
Great, thank you. And just for the information of the board, some of you may be familiar with the work of Billy Hadaway, the former director of the City of Orlando's Transportation Department. He has just now resigned from there to join Fair and Peers transportation consultants who have an Orlando office. And I mention this because Mr. Hadaway is well regarded regionally in the field for multimodal transportation and particularly for complete streets and Vision Zero. So just to let you know of his move there, his expertise may be helpful to us someday now that he's no longer with the City of Orlando, but doing consultant work in our area. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll move approval. I'd also have a comment.
Motion by Commissioner Kemp. Is there a second? Is there a second?
Second. This is Commissioner Overman, a second.
Second by Commissioner Overman. Commissioner Kemp, you recognize.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you for pointing that out, Commissioner Smith. I was not aware of that. And Billy Hadaway is, I would love to have him looking over some of our work here in Hillsborough County, because he would, I'm very excited about that possibility. Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion by Commissioner Kemp, second by Commissioner Overman. Seeing no further discussion, please call the roll.
Miller,
Yes.
Klug,
Yes.
Dingfelder,
Yes.
Hagan,
Yes.
Arden,
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Maniscalco,
Yes.
Marino,
Yes.
Overman,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Wagner.
Yes.
Motion passes 13-0.
Okay, we're now moving to status reports. Commissioner Mark Sharp. I just saw him and he probably had too much coffee this morning. Commissioner Sharp.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. No, I had to fill my coffee cup up. It's
what I told you.
it's an honor to be here before you, Chairman Miller and board members, and it's great to see all of you. I miss seeing you in person. We're working on a very exciting project, and by where I'm talking about the Tampa Innovation Partnership. I am the executive director. Next slide, please. The partnership is a 501c6, and its mission is to unleash the potential of the Uptown District. I heard one of the previous speakers talk about transit and as a tool of freedom, and we wholeheartedly embrace that. And I'll be talking briefly in the next couple of slides about our embracement of transit. But our mission is to take an area. When I was county commissioner many years ago, and had the opportunity to look at where we had a large number of people living in great institutions, but we weren't able to bring them together. Many people were missing out on the economic opportunities that others had as a result of the lack of connection, and it's our mission to create that connection. Next slide, please. I'm gonna turn my presentation over in a few seconds to Mr. Eddie Birch, who's going to present our MOU. But these are historic times. We have the partnership now joined in a memorandum of understanding with the city and the county to produce a master plan. We're halfway through that master plan. We gave our updates to the city and county in June. And what we talked about, and you can see it on this map here, these great institutions, our members of our organization, Advent Health to the north, working on their surgical tower, which is a $250 million project. If you look just a little bit to the south of Advent, you see the VA hospital bed tower. And that's a $200+ million project right there on Bruce B. Downs. If you look again, just across the street from the VA hospital, Moffitt working on a $500 million project, which is the clinical support building. And then further to the south, if you look just to the east of the, west of the Yingling Hotel Conference Center, the Moffitt Hospital, you've got Moffitt to the north and Moffitt down to the south, working on two $500 million projects. Further to the east, you see the Mosey redevelopment project, and the county has just let their RFP for Mosey, and we're very excited to see who's going to respond to the RFP and how we can bring Mosey in to what's happening. You've got the University of South Florida working on their research building, which is very exciting. A brand new research facility, multi-story research facility right there on Fowler Avenue. We have, again, further to the west now, the Rhythm development. Rhythm is the University Mall, the old University Mall, and it's now going to become a mixed-use research facility. And we're very excited about a research village. And so the research activity at Rhythm, we want to be able to connect to all the activities. And so you see the next slide there, the Uptown, you can go ahead to the next slide. And I apologize, I've got vehicles behind me. Our mission is to bring these institutions together. And how are we going to do that? Well, one way is by repurposing Fowler Avenue. And we want to thank our partner, FDOT, for working with us and Kimberly Horn on a Fowler Avenue corridor study that we're working on, but also a completely new vision for Fowler Avenue. When I was a student, way back when, going to the University of South Florida, both as an undergraduate and I got my master's at USF, driving down Fowler, I kept thinking, can't we do better? Can't this street be something that's different for the people who live along the street, work along the street, as you're heading into these major institutions, we ought to have something we can be proud of. And I really want to thank David Gwynn, Ming Gao, Ed McKinney, and the rest of the FDOT team for working with Kimberly Horn and our organization to do something really special in Fowler. And then finally, what we're going to be talking about as Eddie discusses our plan, is the Veterans Tech Trail. And some of you probably have not heard of that trail. We had worked with the legislature last year on trying to get some funding. We're going to go back again this year and see if we can get the funding and survive the governor's veto. But we know that to create opportunity for all of our residents, we've got to connect those great institutions with the people who live in the district. And right now, the connections aren't there. Even though these institutions might just be like a half a mile from each other, they might as well be hundreds of miles from each other. If you're sitting on the campus of USF and you want to go eat lunch off campus, you've got to get in your car and drive on Fowler or Bruce B. Downs or Fletcher Avenue or Bush, and it's very challenging. And so we and our plan are going to be introducing circulator concepts. We're very excited to partner with HART on a BRT, but that Veterans Tech Trail, and we sent a letter to the MPO on July 20th, asking that you include the Veterans Tech Trail and the feasibility study that's now being worked on right now, looking at how you're going to connect Temple Terrace to the University of South Florida. We think the Veterans Tech Trail, which initially will connect the Veterans Administration Hospital to the Rhythm Development, and ultimately we hope to go over or under Bruce B. Downs, connecting to the USF campus, and then over Fowler Avenue and connecting to the Mosey property and directly to Temple Terrace. There's an opportunity to bring the entire community together to create the walkable, bikeable type of community that we want. Connecting the VA to the Rhythm, there'll be a motorized element to this trail, but it's something that will be very special to the people who live in our district. And we think it's something that you, the MPO, would wholly embrace. So we're very excited to talk about the trail. We're also, again, very appreciative of our partnership with FDOT, with Fowler Avenue, and really just connecting all these great anchor institutions together to create the type of economic opportunity that I know that each of you embrace. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Eddie Birch, who's with the Tampa Innovation Partnership, and he'll discuss briefly our master plan.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you for having us on the agenda this morning to talk with you about the master plan, the strategic action plan for Uptown that we're working on with our anchor institutions in the county and the city of Tampa. The slide that Mark shared, the map, what that showed you with that $2 billion of development is that transformation is coming to Uptown. So the time couldn't be more important for us to have this MOU so that we can make sure that this transformation is inclusive and lifts up everyone in the area. So I'm going to really go kind of quickly through this. I just wanted to highlight some of the underpinnings of the plan, and also some of the highlights of it. I'm not sure if you can see the screen right now. I won't read all these points to you, but these are the core values and guiding principles that when we reach this MOU with the city and the county, our organization, the Tampa Innovation Partnership, and our anchor institutions that signed this agreement, they wanted to make sure that this plan was supported by some values that would keep it inclusive and do some of the things that you see here, like creating sustainable economic value and funding sources, environmental resiliency, and open entrepreneurial community, and direct access to the educated talent and academic community resources that we have in the Uptown area, thanks to USF and a lot of our innovation partners up there. Diverse employment environment, very important. That builds on some of the work that we've been doing with CareerSource and other partners and job training programs. Community engagement that is inclusive and diverse. And the next slide is just to create a mixed use, mixed income environment that discourages displacement of current residents and businesses and emphasizes affordable and workforce housing options. And because because people and places from all walks of life are highly valued and celebrated in successful innovation districts around the world, and connecting the two in the most efficient, safest, and satisfying ways possible is the ultimate challenge and opportunity for everyone that's involved in this process. And that's what we want to see at the end of this process. And the next slide, if you could, you'll see that this planning process is based on a lot of studies that have been done that affect the Uptown area specifically. You'll recognize a lot of these are MPO studies, about 3 dozen in all that we have looked at and resynthesized and looked at the updated. And I won't read them all, but just wanted to show you the depth of information that we have to work on. And we have 6 general outcomes that we'd hope to see at the end of this process. To make the Uptown District a global catalyst for economic growth and a global thought leader, to empower the community, to create urban density, a dense urban walkable core for mixed-use development, connecting the district, and that goes everything from hardscape infrastructure to things like transit programs like BRT and that sort of thing, zoning for innovation, and also the governance. And that gets us to some of the proposed action steps. Right now, the current draft of the plan has 27 proposed action steps, the first of which is going to be creating some sort of governing authority for the Uptown District. The Planning Committee is looking at what sort of options there are, and we hope in the next couple of months to settle on a direction. And when we present the final draft of the plan in January, we can be moving toward that ultimate outcome. Some of the other things in there are requesting a commercial overlay district for the Fowler corridor. That's one of our main gateways into the innovation district. A community benefits program that would incentivize inclusive development and offer incentives for developers and institutions, so that the benefits that come from this innovation district aren't just going to be toward the institutions and the commercial players, but toward the whole community. And if we could enhanced pedestrian and bike crossings at Fowler and Bruce B. Downs are something that we've been looking at for a while to get to help people move safely across those corridors. And if we could go to the next slide, we'll get to the actions Mark referenced earlier, and that was the multi-purpose trail connecting the Mid-Uptown to the James A. Haley VA Hospital. And we see this not just as a standalone thing, but as Mark mentioned, it should be something that will be the spine of an Uptown trail network that we're going to expand, and we want to connect to the overall trail network in the county. So that would find a way to connect to that Temple Terrace connector, so that you could ride a bike from Temple Terrace all the way to Rhythm Uptown, and hopefully someday you can, if you healthy enough, ride a bike all the way from New Tampa down to the Riverwalk. And if we could go to the next slide, you'll see what that trail is envisioned to look like. And what you see right there is to the right of your screen is north on that map orientation. The VA hospital would be to the right. The Rhythm of it at Uptown is to the left. And you can see that part of that trail would go over the lake there. And also there is a spine that would go toward the east, which is down on your screen, that would connect to Bruce B. so that eventually we could hook up the USF Research Park, Rhythm at Uptown, to the VA hospital. And this trail is just a physical, tangible sign of the institution in Uptown getting out of the silos, working together, connecting, and also connecting to the communities that surround those institutions. So we'll just go ahead and stop there and open it up for questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Commissioner Smith?
Commissioner Smith, you recognize.
Yes, I was very excited to hear Mr. Sharp mention the Veterans Tech Trail, but wondering exactly where that is. And the map that you show, or the artist rendering there that you're showing, I'm not sure exactly where that is in the big picture. Can you help me?
And
You want me to?
I'll let Eddie kind of address that, but what we have, and we should be able to, good, that might help a little bit. The trail is now designed, and it was designed actually by Kimley Horn, and the very same that did the 22-mile Atlanta Beltline design work. Have took our lead from the Atlanta Beltline project, which really created a lot of economic benefit, but also connected a lot of very disparate areas. Our connection starts at the VA hospital, on the southern border of the VA hospital where the tower is now being constructed. And then it works its way south, around the eastern lake. There are 2 lakes by the mall, which we're very excited. We've been talking with the county about helping to clean those lakes up, cutting the grass down. At some point, we envision lighting around the lakes, and the trail will go from the around the lakes, and then down to the Rhythm development, which is the 100-acre old University Mall development project. And we'll make sure that we have, if we don't probably have the actual design work in this presentation, but we'll have that design work forwarded to Ms. Alden and to you, Commissioner Smith, and anyone else that would like to have a copy of the trail.
That'd be great. I think that's really exciting in that area where, you know, I very much appreciate your working with the whole community to serve the broad range of income levels and diverse populations in that area. And I think bicycle pedestrian connectivity will be very important to make sure that everybody is included, and that this whole project works as a catalyst to help the whole community. So yeah, I'd be really interested in seeing that map and everything about it moving forward. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion?
Commissioner Kemp.
Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
Thank you. You know, we've been watching this grow for a while. Thank you, Mark, for bringing this forward. And so I do have a couple questions about this trail. I know you call it a trail, but it's also for vehicles. It's also a road as well, correct?
It's not a road. What we did want to make sure was, at least for the part that connects the VA hospital, the James Haley Hospital, to Rhythm, because there's the relationship between the two is going to grow. We did a tour to the VA hospital. They're doing a lot of research, very exciting research that's going to help wounded veterans, but also individuals who that have spinal and brain injuries. To be able to move back and forth, they're going to need to be able to move motorized vehicles. And motorized, we mean personal motorized vehicles that can move you like a motorized wheelchair. And then there is an element between the 2 points where we would have a connection that would include what we envision as being electric, small, perhaps like a golf cart of some sort. It wouldn't be anything that would have a loud engine. We would not be running cars back and forth.
Okay, I really like that clarification, because from the renderings, it looked like almost like, I was wondering, because it looked like trucks or, you know, or regular vehicles, a regular road. So that's what I wanted. I wondered if it was like golf cart type of things, or that's very good. So how long is that trail?
Well, the initial connection between the VA hospital and Rhythm development, you're talking about a distance of less than approximately a half a mile. But ultimately, this trail, we envision this trail, thank you, this trail being as long as or longer than the Riverwalk. But that's as it grows. And so there'll be phases to the trail. Phase 1 is the hospital to the Rhythm, because those 2 properties and the Hillsborough County, we've been talking, we know we can do it. It'll become more challenging as we look at connecting to the university. But we really want to do that because the rhythm development and the university are going to interact on a daily basis. We have the Institute of Applied Engineering already at Rhythm. We envision in time thousands and thousands of students, professors going back and forth, and we don't want them doing it in a car. So to your question, Commissioner Kemp, we're working on trying to find a connection that will encourage people to use other forms of transportation, not a motorized vehicle, to get back and forth. And that's going to require us to be part of this feasibility study that you're working on now with Temple Terrace. Ultimately, our dream is you're downtown Temple Terrace and you want to get to the university or over to Rhythm, you can do it without having to get in your vehicle. And we know that there are many, many people who live in Temple Terrace now, but work at the university or work at the VA hospital or work at Moffitt, and they'd love to be able to get back and forth without having to use a car. And that's our mission.
Right. It would be a great benefit. Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Let me say this to Commissioner Sharp and everyone on here. I've had a connection with this area this year for 50 years. 50 years. As a student, going there in 1970 after I transferred to University of South Florida. Then coming back representing it in the Senate, in the Florida House first and then the Florida Senate. Then working at the University of South Florida for 6 years. And now as a county commissioner. And I've always said that, let me back up a little bit. I remember when Fowler was a 2-lane road, and once you're going east, you came to 30th Street, going into the University of South Florida, it was a dirt road. A dirt road. I remember walking on the campus of USF, we would have sandstorms because it was a military bombing range. Commissioner Sharp, after he left the county commission, took on this responsibility and he just ran wild with it. And look at what we have talking about right now in that area. Yangling, he didn't even talk about the Yangling Hotel Conference Center restaurant that's across from the Moffitt $500 million Moffitt Hotel Hospital project. And I'm glad of that because I'm a 3-time cancer survivor and I don't know if I have to use it again or not with my body. But all the other things that are going on out there that's revitalizing that area and making it an area that when you drive down Fowler now, whenever this does take place, you don't have to be ashamed of it. When I was at USF, we brought in a prominent professor to try to hire them to University of South Florida. We wouldn't even come down Fowler. We would take I-4 and come in the back way through the south, to the east, the northern part of Temple Terrace, down Fowler that way and bring them into the university because we couldn't bring them in the other way. It was too embarrassing. So I want to tip my hat to Commissioner Sharp and all those that are working out there and all these aspects of everything that you see out there trying to revitalize this area and make it an area that everyone in Hillsborough County and City of Tampa can be proud of. I know I'm proud of it. I hope to continue to work with him after I leave the county commission in November to continue to do something in whatever capacity I can to make this area, excuse me, be the best that it possibly can be. It has been an area that had many, many names to it that were, you know, the names to it just weren't proper. And now we have a name for it that's going to be something that we all are going to be very, very proud of. So Commissioner Sharp, we appreciate your work. We appreciate all the work that you've done in bringing all these entities together. I know that had to be like herding cats sometimes, but we do appreciate all of the work that you've done. Thank you so very much, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I know you've got to move on. I just want to say we appreciate the work that you've done for our community. I have the greatest, utmost respect for you as an individual and as an elected official, as I do for each of you who serve on this board. And I can tell you, when you opened up with your prayer and you talked about your dream of unity and bringing the nation together, that's what this project is about. And I believe that in the near future, people from all over the globe are going to be coming to the Uptown District to benchmark against us. And I've been going on these benchmarking trips to the chamber for years, and we look at what other people are doing. And I want them to come and see the work we're doing to lift up the entire community, to create opportunity for so many people who've been ignored for generations. We're going to connect them to these great institutions. The great institutions are going to work with the residents, and we're going to create a place that you can be proud of, sir. And I just thank you for your kind words and for the work that all of you are doing.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Okay, Tampa Hillsborough Expressway Authority projects.
Good morning. My name is Anna Quinones, and I'm a project manager with the Tampa Hillsborough Expressway Authority. We also have Bob Fryon, he's the planning director, to help assist with answering any questions that you may have. You can go to the next slide. Basically, I'm going to be giving an overview of all of our projects that are currently underway, starting with our construction projects. Next slide. We have the Salmon West Extension, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. Next slide. As many of you may already know, the Salmon West Extension is a 1.9-mile elevated toll lane in the median of the Gandy Boulevard, stretching from the Gandy Bridge to the expressway interchange at Dale Mabry and Gandy. The new elevated lanes will help separate commuter traffic from local traffic, thus alleviating much of the traffic congestion on Gandy Boulevard. The structure is elevated 30 feet above the existing roadway to increase visibility of businesses on either side of Gandy Boulevard. And at this point, we're over 75% complete with this project, with the current expected opening timeframe of mid-2021. And this is a view of the viaduct with the extratos fins, with one of them painted as they will appear after completion of the viaduct. And you can go to the next slide. And we'll also have aesthetic lighting that can change color for different themes or events. These photos were taken about a month or two ago. The contractor did a test lighting of the pier and fin so we could see what it'll look like. Also, I don't have a slide for it, but we're also working to upgrade our aesthetic lighting on the reversible express lanes. And the goal is to have that completed by February of 2021. Next slide. Here are some numbers showing what is going into the Salmon West Extension. We also have a website dedicated to the extension with tons of relevant information, documents, updates, videos as well, and a link to the Shop Gandy initiative, which is a collaboration between THEA and the South Tampa Chamber of Commerce, the Greater Tampa Chamber of Commerce, the St. Petersburg Area Chamber of Commerce, and the Greater Brandon Chamber of Commerce to promote local businesses along the Gandy corridor before, during, and after construction of the Salmon Extension. And the website is just salmonextension.com. Next slide. Our next currently underway construction project is the South Salmon Safety Project. Next slide. And this will enhance driver safety by constructing a concrete barrier wall in the median of the expressway between the Hillsborough River and Himes Avenue, which is basically where the extension begins. This is what the median used to look like. Next slide. And this is a view of construction. It says current, but it is a bit outdated. The barrier wall is being put in place to prevent crossover crashes. The road is paved to the center, which allows for larger shoulders for disabled vehicles, road rangers, and first responders. Next slide. And this is what it's expected to look like when it's completed. And the expected completion date is now mid-October, so it's really not that far off. And this project will have been completed without lane closures on the Salmon Expressway during peak travel times and no impact to the residents who use the streets underneath the expressway. And our communications team has been out to several neighborhood association meetings in the area to communicate with them about not just this project, but several of the other projects that we have going on locally to keep them informed. Next slide. We have several PD&E studies underway, and for anybody in the audience who does not know what that is, it is a project development and environment study, and this is an environmental engineering process to determine the impacts of a proposed project. This includes social, economic, natural, and environmental impacts. The process explores multiple project alternatives, including the no-build option. From the feasible alternatives, a recommended alternative is selected and reports from the process are prepared. There's also a strong public involvement component throughout the process. Next slide. The first one is our South Salmon PD&E. And the evaluation area is from Himes Avenue, basically where the Salmon West Extension project stops, to Whiting Street in downtown Tampa. This map highlights the project area. The primary purpose of this study is to evaluate the needs, costs, and effects of constructing improvements that will increase capacity on the South Solomon Expressway. The study will also identify solutions to frequent congestion at entry and exit points along the expressway, and we are looking at ways to reduce travel times during morning and evening rush. And the study will evaluate strategies to eliminate conflict points and reduce crashes. And we're also evaluating noise walls and barrier walls for each potential alternative, including the need, the cost, and the constructability of those walls. Next slide. And this is a look at the schedule. The study is still on track to wrap up by April 2021. But as you'll see on the next slide, and you can go ahead and flip over, we've had to shift some of our public involvement dates. So in September, actually, we have a firm date now, that's September 10th at 6:30 p.m. We'll host a virtual town hall to launch and step through our website application and discuss the alternatives. Sorry. Sorry, just a second, my battery's dying. Okay. An in-person information session is pending, given the uncertainty stemming from the pandemic. We have been looking, this says fall 2020. Most recent discussions are now pushing it to early 2021 for safety. At the conclusion of the study, we'll again host another virtual town hall meeting and information session to show the preferred alternative and final recommendations of the study. And then after that, Thea will decide if the project can move forward into the design phase and then construction. And costs will be estimated as part of the study, and they'll be refined as we progress. Anyone can register for the alternatives webinar. It's at selmanstudies.com, as on the slide here. After the webinar, the full website for the South Solomon study will be fully accessible, and the public will be invited to submit comments and questions via the website as well. Next slide. Our next PD&E study is the Whiting Street PD&E study. This is the project area for that. And this study is evaluating extending Whiting and Washington Streets through to Meridian Avenue and the relocation and reconfiguration of ramps 6A and 6B, which are the loops toward the bottom of this map, the loop and the little dog leg. The extension of Whiting Street is a commitment from Thea to the city of Tampa related to the Solomon Expressway Reversible Express Lanes project. Once Ardent Mills, the flour mill that's over there, vacates the property in the Channel District, the CSX rail lines currently serving the flour mill will be removed to allow for the realignment and extension of Whiting Street and Washington Street. The purpose of this project is to improve safety, accessibility, circulation along the Solomon Expressway and throughout the downtown and Channel District. The extensions of Whiting and Washington Streets will provide capacity and operational improvements while complementing the city's street grid network. Significant development throughout the city and Channel District, alongside anticipated traffic demand on the Solomon Expressway, has further spurred the need to improve downtown accessibility and circulation options, as well as enhance the safety and travel flow along the Solomon Expressway. This study requires a lot of ongoing coordination with the city and SVP as they develop the Water Street district area. And you can, next slide. And this is a look at that schedule. The study began in July of 2019 and is expected to be completed by December of 2021. And the first public workshop for that is scheduled for January 2021. Hopefully by then we can do some in-person information sessions. Next slide. Right, and then we have the Salmon East PD&E. This is the first phase in a three-phase project to improve the capacity, safety, and operations from downtown to I-75. Depending on the needs, this future improvement is anticipated to include adding an additional lane to the reversible express lane from Palm River Road to I-75 and additional mainline lanes of the expressway from Brewerine to I-75. Operational improvements to interchanges, ramps, and connections at Brewerine Street, Kennedy Boulevard, I-4 connector, and US 301 and I-75 will also be evaluated. Next slide. here's the schedule for that. This study began in March of 2020 and is expected to wrap up May of 2022. So this one is still fresh. And next slide. And finally, we have our Nebraska Avenue PD&E, which just recently kicked off, actually this month, August, yes. We'll look at a relatively small but significant section of Nebraska to evaluate capacity and operational improvement alternatives between south of Twiggs to just north of Cass. The study will ultimately recommend a preferred alternative configuration of travel lanes, turn lanes, and intersections, and an implementation plan for feasible traffic management strategies. This is being done to look at ways to improve traffic flow. After the work on Twiggs has been completed, there's a Twiggs design build project that includes adding an additional right turn lane from the REL onto Twiggs and an additional receiving lane on Twiggs between Meridian and Nebraska, and that's being done in coordination with the City of Tampa. One more note on that, we are in the selection process for the Twiggs design build. And this is another project that requires a lot of close coordination with FDOT as well. So next slide. Then we have our community enhancement projects. Next slide. And this is just a slide showing some of the community enhancement projects we've already completed over the years. Many of you are probably familiar with them. Next slide. Our most recent completed community enhancement project is the Morrison Gateway project. And this is under the overpass at Morrison Avenue in Hyde Park. It's one of our community enhancement projects in which we work with the neighborhood association to make aesthetic improvements within our right-of-way. And how that usually works is the community organizations, they're welcome to come and apply for these community enhancement projects. We'll meet with the group representatives to hear what they'd like to do. After we determine if it's feasible or come up with a feasible plan, we discuss what agreements we'll need. And in the past, what we've done, we've put the capital cost to design and construct the enhancements, and then we ask that the organization maintain the enhancements. And that's the agreement that we have for this location as well. Next slide. And then in downtown, we have our Selman Greenway. We are currently finishing the design for enhancements for the Greenway between Florida Avenue and Jefferson. And this will further enhance the pedestrian connection between the west side of downtown and the Water Street developments, in particular, the USF medical facilities, Camels, and the new one that's been constructed by Water Street. Construction has been programmed for fiscal year 22 for this one. And then we have the other Greenway improvements programmed as follows. So as you can see here, the little orange box is showing the Jefferson Triangle, which we plan to rebuild as a pocket park as part of the Whiting Street and ramp construction project. In the purple, we have the design program to begin in fiscal year 22 to enhance connectivity over there as well. And the top section closer to Ybor along Adamo, that's more to be determined at this point. That area has kind of been up in flux, but we remain open to speaking with the local agency over there to see what is going on, see what the plans are, and kind of remain open to see what we can do to enhance that area as well. Next slide. And that brings me to the conclusion. I will answer as many questions as I can, and then I have Bob on to help as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Are there any questions? Are there any questions?
Dingfelder had a question.
Councilman Dingfelder, do you recognize?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of things, just to shout out to our colleague, Mr. Wagner, and his great leadership and his entire team. You know, for years, I always thought the Expressway Authority was just about an elevated expressway, but they've managed to prove that they can come down to street level and make really positive change throughout our community. I did have a few questions and one comment to Ms. Canones. The Bay to Bay exit I guess we're suffering from our own success. So the Beta Bay exit seems to back up at certain peak hours as it loops around down onto Beta Bay. And I'm wondering if there's any fix to that whatsoever, or if that's more of a function of the traffic light down there at the bottom, or what can we do to it? Or are you guys looking at that through the PD&E? My other question relates to sound walls on the new construction down at the Gandy construction area. Ultimately, are there going to be some sound walls in some of those areas? Because I know that going back 20 years, sound has always been a concern, coming off that new elevated construction. And then my last is more of a comment. As I head down south toward the new construction, sometimes I think you need to talk to your contractor, because the signage down at the very end as you approach Gandy Boulevard is not very good. Sometimes there's temporary signs there that tell you, stay in the left lane if you want to loop down to MacDill Air Force Base, or go in the right lane if you want to head to the Gandy Bridge. But the signage is really pretty poor and it's sporadic. So that's more of a comment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is there any other? Pardon me?
Just a quick response from Ms. Quinones.
Commissioner Smith, you recognize?
Excuse me, I think I realized, did Mrs. Quinones want to address? Okay.
Sure, I can, okay. Yeah, I can address very quickly. For the Beta Bay exit, they're looking at all the exits, but there is some work that would need to happen on the, I believe that's a county road, the county side. But we are in conversations with what we can do with the county, or even with the city of Tampa, to improve the local road network as well, some of the signal phasing and things like that. This study is opening up some of those discussions, in which we have to work with the city or the county to come up with strategies on what we can do at the ground level. So we are looking at that. The sound walls, they have been evaluated for each alternative. My best answer to this is that you'll get an abundance of information from the alternatives that will be on the website, the public meeting, and I believe our communications team is going to be scheduling one-on-one meetings with all the.
Let me interrupt you. I'm talking about the sound walls on the new construction that's already going on down by Gandy and West Shore.
Oh, we are for that particular project. So we're evaluating sound walls as part of the PD&E to change the road. For this one, we are not actually adding sound walls. It's just a barrier wall in the median.
Okay, you still miss me. I'll call you later. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Commissioner Smith, you recognize.
Thank you. And I just didn't realize that I had maybe interrupted Councilman Dingfelder's question. Could you show the slide of the community benefits, please? Okay. Of all of those, I think the next slide really shows the best, for my money, the best community benefit. The next slide of the, there we go, that gateway project that it's providing lighting as well under the overpass for pedestrian path, right?
The lighting, I believe, was replaced, or it was upgraded to meet the standard. The community was, they didn't want too much lighting because there's homes over there. So we did go back and forth on that a little bit. But
Thank
you. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, but then I heard you saying what we've talked about a little bit before, that, and I know Commissioner Overman has brought this point up, that while you provide that gateway and lighting, that it is then turned over to the community to pay to maintain. So by the community in this case, you mean the city of Tampa?
I'm sorry, no, it is the neighborhood association in this case.
Wow. So I would just like to suggest that FDOT, the state, seems to have so much more resources that they are, ready to spend billions on the MCORS roads through nowhere projects. And when the community asks for a little sidewalk and safe passage under an overpass, I would think that the state could at least provide maintenance for something like 30 years moving forward, rather than asking the homeowners association to pay for maintenance moving forward. And that's my comment. Thank you.
May I make, this is Joe Wagner, may I respond, please?
Yes, sir.
We work on these very closely with the community. When we say maintenance, we're usually talking about specific types of landscaping they've requested. And then for those landscaping plans, we actually install all the new landscaping. We install all the irrigation systems. And then we have an agreement with the city of Tampa where they irrigate the landscaping. When it comes to any hardscape features in there, we are totally responsible for all that when it goes in and after it goes in. We do continuous monitoring, updating of the landscaping that is in there. And so the ask of the community is more or less, you put some skin in the game and we'll put a lot of skin in the game. So it's more of a partnership is what we're trying to form through this program. So it's not an onerous burden on any of the community associations we work with. We've had no complaints at all. They've all been very complimentary in the number of projects we've done through this program. So this is a THEA concern. It's not a state DOT concern that we're doing here. So I'd be happy to work with you or anybody else if there's any issue with regard to one of these projects that we develop and we maintain as we go forward.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. Anyone else?
Commissioner Kemp.
Commissioner Kemp, you recognize.
Thank you. I wouldn't have brought this up before, but this is a good, I think, opportunity. And I know Beta Bay was mentioned. I know Beta Bay does get backed up. It strikes me, and I don't know if there's a place for conversation about this, but I know that there's been a huge community outcry over and over again with the Beta Bay as an issue about making it a complete street and changing the nature of that street. And I see an issue as to the fact that there is an expressway exit onto Beta Bay. That exit is, as has been noted, to me, that's where I see the backups on the expressway is always at the exits, not at the not as people, even during rush times for me, and I haven't seen all the traffic numbers or anything, but it doesn't seem to be an issue moving. It just seems to be an issue exiting and entering onto the expressway, which is a different issue. But as far as Beta Bay, that seems like a really short, dangerous, steep exit onto this very small road, community road. And I have thought for some time and wondered about that exit moving to a road that was more capable of taking it, which is very close, and that's Dale Mabry. It would just seem to me to make much more sense to drop that volume of traffic, and that there could be a smoother exit way, because it could be elongated one onto Dale Mabry, as opposed to I'm always struck by how much that one on Beta Bay just drops you down into there. It's just strikes me as being just not good design for that area and not a good place for that exit. I'm just wondering if there could be any, if there's any thoughts to be shared about that.
And Bob Fry, planning director for THEA. We've already met with the city, and we are going to be having meetings on every access point, specifically on what the city would like to see and how we're going to do a design similar to what we did on the Florida ramps for the Whiting Street project. So yes, we will do that. We will look at each one. Right now for the Selman South, we are just looking at a preferred alternative, but we met with them last week. We assured Vic Beatty and Milton Martinez that we will meet and go through every single access point and come up with what the recommendations are. So I'm sure Beta Bay will be near the top of the list.
Thank you. I think it's a really dangerous one and a one for the future that would be much better guided if people could just go a little bit further to Dale Mabry and take that road that seems to be able to take that kind of traffic and drive back if they want to or whatever to get to. I think it would be a huge benefit to move that exit, but thank you.
Noted, thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on the agenda. Next is the heart service changes for 2021.
And just do a mic check here.
Yes, sir. We'll hear you.
All right, thanks so much. Good morning, MPO board and attendees. My name is Justin Willits. I'm a senior planner in the service development department here at HART. And I just wanted to go over our proposed service modifications for and calendar 21. We're in phase 1 of our public outreach and looking to get some feedback from the community. I have put the website heartserviceinput.com in the chat, so please see that link to respond to some of the alternatives and different routing options that we've put into this plan. That's the best place to really track your feedback, but obviously we're happy to take any questions probably at the end of the presentation. And with that, we'll go ahead and get started with the next slide. So a little bit of background. We were tasked in our department with coming up with some service changes to more accurately reflect our budget situation as we all wait for the outcome of the surtax from the Supreme Court. We've tried to chart a path of a more sustainable financial future for our agency, and our department specifically was looking at how we could tweak service to save some resources in the upcoming year. So we've proposed a slew of modifications that we'll go over with here, talk about some of the impacts and the schedule of those changes, and then touch on next steps and take questions. Next slide. General objectives, like I said, to maintain fiscal responsibility and improve our trajectory, preserve as much service coverage and frequency as possible, approach the adjustment with the most efficient and effective way we can. Want to maximize our existing resources, maintain the essential services that we've been operating throughout the pandemic that have been well utilized, even while hoping to only serve people on those essential trips. And then we want to address community and operational requests since the implementation of Mission Max. We have a lot of feedback, and there's a lot of things that have changed since then, including some of the ways we deliver service. So we're balancing some of the needs that we've addressed or we've seen arise over the last few years, and also maintain a path towards the aspirational type of transit system I think we all want to see in the community. Next slide. So the proposed changes are as follows. Next slide. So we'll start in the university area. This is something we've heard quite a bit about. We pulled a lot of the service off campus due to some congestion and some operational improvements during Mission Max, and we think it's time to reintroduce service to USF's campus. They have a good bull runner system, but those longer, I would say almost a regional connection by Hearts are a little bit different than some of the connections Bull Runner makes. So what we're proposing to do is take the Route 48 from 50th Street and Fletcher Avenue and bring that into campus and through campus on Holly Drive. Similarly, we would like to take the Route 5, and instead of operating on Fowler to Bruce B. Downs, we're going to try to bring it in on campus on Spectrum Boulevard and just add a few stops there. Really kind of a barrier, as we know, nobody really probably loves crossing Fowler on foot, so we think that this will make transit a little more attractive and also a much safer connection to campus for those people coming from the south on Route 5. Next slide. So another really great improvement from our perspective as part of this plan is back in Mission Max, we pulled a lot of the service down to Fletcher, and that was when Hyperlink was being rolled out, and we weren't sure how successful that would be, and it didn't turn out to be very successful. So we're trying to reintroduce service to this area. This specific change is, I would say, not only to serve the community north of Fletcher, but also hit the university area, the UACDC. Sorry if I get the letters wrong there, but it's on North 22nd Street. So that's one of the main things we're trying to hit with these options. The three options you see here are basically all one-way loops concept, counterclockwise, going up North 22nd Street to Bears and Livingston, and then on Sinclair Hills at the northern end. And then they all differ slightly on how they would return to the University Area Transit Center. Option 1 has a large one-way loop that extends all the way over to Florida Avenue. Option 2 would have the turnaround from Nebraska to Bears to then create two-way service on 22nd Street. And then the third option would have that loop return down Nebraska straight to 131st Avenue. We think that the staff recommendation is option 1, but we wanted to give a few options out there that still accomplish most of the goals of this change. So as I said, if you go to heartserviceinput.com, you can fill out the survey. I would ask you please to share this with your networks, both at your workplace and on your social media feeds. We really would appreciate the feedback, especially in this early phase of the project where we are able to make some tweaks and before we get too far along. So we can go to the next slide. Another modification we're proposing is to change the way we serve the areas for routes 45 and 42. As you see here, if you are trying to ride from the University Area Transit Center north of Fletcher on Route 42, you would either have to get off and wait for the 42 to go all the way down to Yukon Transfer Center and come back to get to that area. So we're consolidating that portion of Route 42 into Route 45, which would then bypass the Yukon Transfer Center. All those transfers are still able to be made at intersecting locations. We don't have a lot of service at the Yukon Transfer Center like we used to. So we think this is a big improvement. And then, so you see Route 45 would then connect from the West Shore District all the way to the University Area Transit Center, and Route 42 would then just become a one-way loop, standalone route, if you will, which is also something that some of you might recall was in our IOC program of projects. So this is consistent with some plans that we're still kind of out there and wait as we wait for the surtax decision to come down. Next slide. So another one of the recommendations is to extend Route 33 to replace the Northdale Flex route. And what this would do is really kind of create a better connection from the university area to Northdale and from Northdale into the university area. We would be recommending to reduce the frequency on this from 30 minutes to 60 minutes. We have a good amount of service on Fletcher. 3 of our 4 most frequent routes, Route 6, 1, and 400, the Retro Rapid, have a lot of frequency between basically Florida Avenue and 56th Street. So we think that while we don't necessarily like to propose reductions in frequency from 30 to 60 minutes, there's ample service out there, and that the 1-seat ride from Northdale all the way into the university area is a bigger benefit than the negative aspects of reducing frequency, if that makes sense. So we think this is a really good improvement and will help, just create a little bit of a better flow from Fletcher and Northdale Mabry and provide some better connectivity for our customers. Next slide. One of the modifications we're also looking at is reducing the length of the 275LX. There's still some coordination occurring with FDOT about how much grant funding would be available, if any. So there's still some developments to be worked out on this, but we've tentatively proposed to operate this service from the University Area Transit Center to Wesley Chapel That's about 50% of our ridership before the pandemic was on that segment. And we've got some other ideas for how to replace the connections that this route was making from downtown to the airport. And we can go to the next slide for to talk about that. So what we've seen on the 60LX and the 275LX on the top map are that when 275 gets very congested, as it usually does, we detour these routes down to Cypress because it's pretty consistent travel time wise. So we basically want to formalize that detour and return some service to West Tampa and the West Shore area. And so we're recommending getting rid of the 60 and 275LX. Between the two of them, they provided a bus every 30 minutes from downtown to the airport. We're just proposing to reallocate those resources to a route that's every 30 minutes on Cypress from downtown to West Shore Boulevard and into the airport. And previously noted was the amount of ridership for the 275LX was under 20% from downtown to the airport. And the 60LX was one of the lowest performing routes. It travels from the Brandon area through downtown and to the airport. So there's a lot of resources on those routes. We're trying to just kind of spread them out a little more evenly over some of our more productive services. And that's one of the bigger highlights of this whole plan, is just trying to be a little more efficient with some of these really long haul express routes that aren't that don't perform as well as some of our locals do. Next slide, please. Another, what I would call a big win of this recommendation is moving the Route 7 from the North Boulevard section north of Main Street, and then bringing it back down to Main Street to travel to Howard and Armenia to hit the West River redevelopment that's coming to life right now. We think that that's going to be a huge win and a better connection from downtown to HCC, and hopefully start building up some of those services in West Tampa who had quite a few, they've been very vocal about losing some service during Mission Max, so we're really happy to be proposing a restoration of some of that service to the area. And next slide, please. So Route 8 is a bit of a tricky route. It connects the Brandon Mall through Progress Village and into Ybor City downtown and Marion Transit Center. As you can see on the left, the existing alignment is very duplicative with the streetcar, which is free, as we all know, for another year or so. So what we've done, and we've heard a lot of operator complaints, this route is constantly on detour. A lot of it actually occurs because of its close proximity to the CSX rail yard and how many rail crossings it has. But even when it gets this close to downtown, 7th Avenue is frequently closed down for special events. And then a lot of construction in the Water Street area and downtown and Channel District generally have led to it constantly being on detour. So we've worked with our safety folks and recommended that we just bring this route down to 4th Avenue and kind of formalize that detour, and then bring it into downtown on Jackson and Kennedy. So that is where the recommendation stands as of now. And I think it'll be a good improvement and a little more consistent for our customers, not having to constantly deal with the detours on their route. Next slide, please. Route 30 and 35, this is a very simple change. We're just recombining the two into what they used to be, which was a single route from the Northwest Transfer Center through the airport, West Shore, and Kennedy Boulevard to downtown. There's been several changes that have impacted why this connection was broken, for lack of a better expression, a few years ago, and we're happy to reintroduce it. I know the West Shore Alliance folks are really pleased to have a one-seat ride from Northwest into their district. There was a lot of problems with the connections of those two routes and forcing another transfer. So this is something that I think will be a big improvement for everyone. Next slide. This is one of the real highlights of the plan. We are hoping to extend Route 38 further into the Brandon area, down Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard to Parsons Avenue, and then down to Oakfield. We've heard a lot of calls for service on Parsons for several years. So I'm looking forward to trying to make this happen. But I think this is, one of three major highlights of this plan that are a big win for the community at large. Next slide, please. Route 14 has been pretty successful since the modification several years ago. The one complaint that we get is it doesn't really have a good end of the line there. As you see, it turns around at Swan Avenue in the Soho district. We're proposing to extend that route with a couple of options here, which is why I'd point you again to the survey so you can weigh in on those. We're proposing to extend it south on Howard Avenue to travel actually down to Bayshore to get to Beta Bay. The old Route 4 used to do a little jog between some very minor streets between Howard and Beta Bay. With our 40-foot vehicles, that's not possible. So I checked with some of the city folks and we went out there and tested just a quick little stint on Bayshore to get to Beta Bay, and it checked out with safety and operations. So we're going to avoid a lot of that really tight turning radius that we used to do with some 30-foot buses and just get on Bayshore for a moment. And then the recommendation from staff is to go McDill south to Euclid, but we've also got a concept for going Beta Bay over to Dale Mabry. There is some commercial that we think it would be a good connection for job access on McDill. So that option number one is preferred at the moment, but we're throwing it out there to get some feedback from the community. And if anyone knows the last time we had transit service on Bayshore, I'm still looking for an answer on that one, but not exactly sure. We're kind of excited to be able to take a HART bus and enjoy Bayshore. Next slide, please. So other high-level changes, we are trying to be as equitable as possible with how we're allocating our service. And one of the recommendations is to reduce. Oh no. Are we still there?
Yeah.
So, sorry, my monitor just went to sleep. So one of the main changes was reducing frequency on our core 4 routes from 15 to 20 minutes. While it's not something we like to do because we aspire to have more frequent service out there in more places, but we're really trying to spread our resources and they're rather thin. So this really translates to being able to operate at 20 minutes can translate to a savings of like 2 vehicles a day throughout the course of the day. And when you spread that across 4 routes, you're talking about, anywhere from 7 to 10 vehicles. So that helps us kind of keep a lot of the service in the other parts of the city and county that may only operate with 1 or 2 vehicles on each route, where these operate with 8 to 10. So that's one of the big reasons we're able to kind of preserve some other service and do some of the things that we've discussed. Similarly, we're proposing to reduce frequency on Route 46, which is Brandon Boulevard, from 30 to 60 minutes. It just really hasn't performed well since we increased that frequency some years ago. Similarly, we are modifying some of the trips on the 24 and 25 LX, removing the 20X, which is only 2 morning and evening trips from Lutz downtown and to McDill. And then we're proposing to eliminate the flex routes and the South County Shopper, which is only a Tuesday, Wednesday service, or Tuesday, Thursday, service that we've been operating over the last few years. Next slide. So again, in summary, adjusting routes that you saw, 5, 7, 8, 33, 42, and 45, with a little bit of frequency reduction on some of those services. The added service for routes 10, 14, 38, and 48, which I think are part of the big wins in the plan, and then reducing the frequency, as I discussed, with several removed services in the draft plan. We've been getting some feedback. So I think we're going to look a little bit harder about the South County flex. I think that we really want to preserve the service in Waimama. So we're trying to balance whether or not we think we should do that with a local route or maintain the flex service, but that's one that we're looking hard at. And we can move on to the next route. I just did want to mention that, as feedback has already been pretty strong that we need to make sure we still have an option for some folks down there. And then we're increasing coverage slightly on a few of those routes we discussed. Most of the routes that are to be eliminated are served within a quarter mile by other services, so it's not really taking a big gap in our service area. So we're pretty comfortable with where the plan sits and looking forward to refining it further based on the community's feedback. Go to next slide. So this is a draft of what the proposed weekday service map would look like. You can see the green there is 20-minute frequency, and the blue is 30-minute frequency. The purple is 60 minutes. And then we have the orange is our LX service, which is kind of just dependent on scheduling. A lot of those are peak only, but the 360 LX, which is the JC Hanley Park and Ride in Brandon that travels on the crosstown through downtown and then to McDill, is an hourly route and is planned to stay an hourly limited express connection all day. And I believe that should be the end. Yes, our current schedule. We're in phase 1 of outreach now, working on that through September, and then we'll have our public hearing and presentation to the HART board in October and November respectively, and then shooting for January implementation. Again, we have completed a few of our virtual town halls. We have another one upcoming on Wednesday morning. It's all on the website, heartserviceinput.com, which I plugged several times already. So I'm happy to report any comments and answer any questions now. And thank you for your time this morning.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Are there any questions? Are there any questions?
Yes,
Commissioner Kemp.
Commissioner Kemp, briefly, please, because we're running late.
Sure. And I just wanted to make a few comments. Only we did some deep dives on this at HART, but we have different people here. So generally, I'm really pleased. I think people should understand that cuts that have been made because HART is very, very, very underfunded, and the Mission Max cuts were made for that reason, not for I think mythology that it was efficiency reasons. It's because we didn't have the money to do the routes. That being said, I think we have to find out ways to do to better serve the most people in the best way. And I think that has been a goal here. A couple things I'm very pleased. I've been asking for a while for a map that showed colors that colorize the frequency of the routes. I think that's really important, and we've got that now. That I'm really pleased about, and that's gives you a real big key about your transit system when you can see the green, I think, was the 20-minute frequency. We went from a top frequency of 15 minutes to 20 minutes, which is, I don't know any other system in the country that actually goes by 20 minutes instead of 10, which is sad, but that's our reality. But I'm still pleased with how we're doing it. I think that's important that we, and I understand that we look at it that way. And I think we have cut some of the routes that are, a couple of keys. Hyperlink, you said didn't work. It hasn't worked anywhere in the country. And I think it's important for people to realize that was costly and really didn't do the kind of service that we wanted. And so fixed route frequency is the way that ends up serving the most people in the best way. And through, at street level arterial roads, we found, like everywhere else in the country, these express routes are expensive, and the ridership it is not the kind of ridership we get when we do our internal at street grade level routes, which are our highest ridership routes. The LX is typically 30 to, we've had over $100 per passenger per trip. So those are certainly things that we need to really think about when we readjust the route. We might want to do some of that because we need to provide some service, but it's very, very costly and expensive service. And I'm glad we continue kind of to drill down on this and make it better and better. And moving forward, thanks for the presentation. I think these are, as we're getting more understanding about how we move forward and what we do to provide the best transit. Thanks.
Okay, is anyone else? Okay, so thank you very much for your presentation. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Executive Director's report, Ms. Alden.
Thank you, sir. And I just have a few brief announcements. I just wanted to draw to your attention our Vision Zero Leadership Summit. That will be a virtual event, and we are holding that in place of our regular policy committee meeting. So we're pleased Commissioner Kemp will chair and facilitate that for us. We have a couple of great speakers. One of them actually is Billy Hadaway, who was mentioned earlier in the meeting. And he's always very engaging, and we're excited to have him actually moving to Tampa sometime soon. So hope you can join us 9 a.m. on the 22nd. Our next board meeting will be a workshop that'll be October the 14th. So we're not planning to be taking to be bringing action items to the board. We will be focusing entirely on managed lanes and learning from three other speakers from around the country about how managed lanes have played out in their areas. So our next regular board meeting will not be until the beginning of November. It'll be the day after Election Day. The educational workshop on value capture strategies for funding transportation is something else that I wanted to draw to your attention. This might be something that your staff are more interested in because we are going to be doing kind of that deep dive into things like, what does tax increment financing do as a tool to help fund transit improvements, for example. So this is off some research that's been done by the USF Master of Urban and Regional Planning Program with a partnership sponsorship from Plan Hillsborough. The link to that will be up on our website. The Independent Oversight Committee for the Transportation Sales Surtax, I mentioned our public hearing for that. That has now been rescheduled to October 26th at 6 p.m. We're waiting to see what the format for that will be. It might be a hybrid virtual format. Last month, you asked for information about which projects in the Transportation Improvement Program that we just adopted might have toll lanes on them. And our FDOT District 7 office has provided a map. Is in your agenda packet. Also, they'll be planning to talk about some of the questions that you brought up last month when we have our managed lanes workshop in October. And then finally, one new piece of news since the agenda packet went out is HART is planning an event on the 18th of September and asked us to adjust the time of our regional TMA leadership group meeting. So that meeting normally would be 9:30 a.m. on September 18th. We will be shifting that to an 8:30 a.m. start time, but no other changes in the arrangements for that. That one will be held via a Zoom link. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to address those.
Any questions, Ms. Alden? Any questions, Ms. Alden? Thank you, Ms. Alden, very much. You've already discussed the board information request for the CIP projects with toll lanes under old business. Is there any other old business to be brought before us today? Any other old business? Is there any new business to come before us today? Any new business? Seeing none, everyone
Chair,
take
this
care.
is Kimberly. This is Commissioner Overman.
Commissioner Overman, you recognize.
Thank you. Under the old business, new business category, there's the TIP projects regarding toll lanes. I want to thank FDOT for providing us with that backup material as we prepare for the managed lanes. In looking at it, it only includes the TIP toll projects, which is great in the sense that we can see that a majority of any of our road improvements are actually considered toll lanes, from Tampa basically to, I assume, Orlando. And there's this little stretch in the DTI due to some of the work that we've done and citizens have done as far as carving out the tolls on 275 North. But I do think that it's important that as we prepare for the October Managed Lanes workshop, that we see what other roads beyond the TIP, beyond the 5-year planning, that are also scheduled for tolls. So, for example, 75 has a plan for, I think, for tolls. And, you know, I think it's important that we have more than just 275 to take a look at in this particular case as it pertains to tolls. So as we get ready for the workshop, I'd ask to make sure that we include something beyond a 5-year look, as many of these projects take a very long time to implement. And I want to make sure we're on track for what we do and how we look at the inequities associated with toll lanes. And I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Sure.
Seeing no other business come before us today, everyone be careful. Mayor Ross, I see your hand.
Oh,
Mayor
no,
Ross?
Commissioner. Fine.
Oh, I
Thank
thought I
you.
saw your hand. Okay.
Nothing,
Okay.
Commissioner. Thank you.
Okay. Everyone be careful, stay safe, and we'll see each other on October 14th, I believe you said, Ms. Odin,
Yes, sir.
for a workshop. Okay. Seeing no further business come before us today, we are adjourned.
So long, everyone.